It's great to be here this morning, and it's great to be here to talk about an important subject, because if, as the gentleman from Dallas, Mr. Price, talked about, if we continue to suspend children and send them out, we're never going to reach the president's goal of having 60% of our kids, when they graduate from high school, go on to college and become college or area the technical school graduates. We have a tremendous challenge. The president challenged us that within the next 10 years, 60%, we have to have a college graduation rate of 60%, and right now it's about 30% for our survival as a nation. So what are the efforts that we're doing? In Milwaukee, we want to talk about the significant changes that are transforming lives in Milwaukee. We started out a number of years ago with one of our schools, and Mr. Cookhouse, who was the principal of that school, he's now a retired principal, but the principal of that school, started out with the Violent-Free Zone program in his particular school, and it really transformed that particular school. As I looked at the data and met with Mr. Woodson and looked at the program and looked at what was happening in other cities, I was skeptical at first, because I looked at the data and I saw tremendous improvements in the data and tremendous improvements in the results. So when we looked at it, we invited Bob in. We worked with the philanthropic community that started at seed money, and we began to put this in a couple of our high schools. We saw instantaneously changes that were occurring in the schools. Never forget the meeting I had with a group of teachers at Custer High School. I went in the auditorium and spoke with the teachers, and as I walked in and began to talk about the Violent-Free Zone and the effort that they had in that school, the staff gave me a standing ovation. For a superintendent to go into a high school and have a staff give you a standing ovation, that was kind of shocking to me. But the point here that I think is really important is, what do you do to prevent things from happening, and what do you do to build relationships with children that transform their lives, which is extremely important. We can talk about programs that you put into schools that talk about what do you do to exit children or to remove children, but what do you do in schools to put programs in schools that actually change their lives and change their way of looking at things in a proactive, preventive way. That then will transform into respectful behavior. That talks about resiliency that we know about. That what do you do to give young people resiliency to strive and to move forward? What do you do to give young people the ability to talk and interact and engage in a positive way? What do you do to give young people the ability to solve conflicts in a positive way? What do you do to give young people goals and objectives and the ability to focus on the future? That's the work that Bob is giving, and the Violence-Free Zone. In many cases, when I've heard the testimony of some of the fine young people that have experienced positive change, I've really come to the conclusion that we're really talking about saving lives. Because if the children weren't involved in these positive conversations, these positive changes in their lives, many of these young people would be involved in crime or victims of crime. What I think is important to understand, that in a school environment, you have leaders, informal leaders that engage sometimes in positive but also in sometimes negative consequences in the school and lead people in negative ways. The Violent-Free Zone youth counselors go into the schools and they connect and interact with leaders in the school. And they work with those leaders on giving them the ability to use those leadership skills in a positive way, for children to follow them in positive attributes. When I was at South Division High School, I went into the school and they had a problem with graffiti. So what the youth counselors did is they worked with the children. They have a room that's near the cafeteria, and in that room is a wall, and that wall has cement blocks, and children were able to come in and mark their being, their self-expression, not in gang language, but in their own being of self-expression. The graffiti in the school went down, and children had a safe place that they could use self-expression in that particular room. So you talk about violence reduction, you talk about peer mediation, you talk also about what do they do to transform lives out in the community. I've gotten calls from Bob Woodson as superintendent on the weekend when he's indicated to me that the counselors have talked to them, and there's certain things coming down that could be negative, that are turned into positive things because the youth counselors have prevented them. We interact then with the school community on Monday morning when children come to school to prevent things from happening. So let me just give you a thumbnail about the data. Overall in the city, The city of Milwaukee, we have a new police chief, and the city of Milwaukee's overall crime statistics are down significantly, 10-15% in the last 2 years. So I asked the question, now we have the violence-free zone reaching about 20 to 25% of our high school students. In our school system, you talk about suspension days. We had 36,000 less days of suspension last school year. That's 36,000 days that our children were in school, in our high schools, learning. A big part of that is attributed to the work of the violent-free zone. The other statistic we're looking at, and this is an important statistic, of how many suspensions are given to what I call the soft type of behavior, where children are in classrooms, classroom disruption, those type of things. We're trying to virtually eliminate those type of suspensions so that if, in fact, we have to suspend a child, it is for something that is more criminal of nature or violent of nature, but eliminate those other types of suspension. Obviously, we like to bring them all down. So the word that I would use here is, a couple words, transformational change. We have expanded the violent-free zone into 8 of our high schools. When you walk into those high schools now, it's a different attitude. It's a different attitude. And the attitude changes between the adults in the school, the teachers, the administrators, and the children. When you go into the high school, you now see children talking and interacting with the adults. Before, I didn't see enough of that. I didn't see the dialogue, the interaction, the communication. You walk around in the cafeteria, you go in the hallway, you see now children talking, interacting informally with the adults in the school. That shows you that there's a relationship building that's transforming the life, not only of the children, but all of the adults in the school, and it also has an impact on the broader community. We've been very successful in Milwaukee with the violent-free zone. I would encourage anyone to look seriously at this program of bringing not only the program to the school, but actually what it'll do for the overall community around the school and the neighborhoods around the school, because it really transformed the lives of people in the broader community. Thank you.